be looked after under his energy policy. And he's now saying he can achieve higher climate targets in a way that's zero cost to the public. This is not a recipe for climate leadership, Mr. Speaker. It's a recipe for higher bills and lost jobs, and it will be a disaster for the British public.
Can I just say, just to remind front benches, is 5 minutes. OK. Secretary of State.
Oh dear. OK, let me deal with her questions such as they are, Mr. Speaker. Let's start with our nationally determined contribution announced at COP. Yeah. It's so interesting that she now opposes this, because the 2035 NDC, announced by the Prime Minister, is exactly the target her government legislated for in 2021 in the 6th carbon budget, which covers 2035, which means she is now opposing, Mr. Speaker, the very same target her government put into law. And she claimed that she was working towards as Secretary of State just a few months ago. And, Mr. Speaker, there is a pattern here. Every week, the Right Honourable Lady takes to Twitter to express her latest outrage about a policy, asking who on earth could support this. And every week, someone pops up in her replies and says politely, "You did, just a few months back." Because this isn't the only one, Mr. Speaker. Last week she came out against the clean heat market mechanism, another policy she proposed. In fact, I have what she says, no, I have a statement from her from only 8 months ago, where she said it will be coming in, the clean heat market mechanism, in April 2025, exactly what this government is doing. And the truth is, Mr. Speaker, any passing bandwagon, and she'll leap on it, even if it means trashing her record. And let me give her a little lesson about opposition. The job of opposition is to oppose the government, not to oppose yourself. And this is where she has ended up. And so out of the window goes any commitment to climate action, ignoring the fact it's the route to energy security, good jobs and lower bills, ignoring the fact it's backed by business, ignoring the fact that this country has an honourable tradition of a bipartisan consensus. I'm happy to say that the last government proposed some ambitious targets, that COP26 was an important milestone for the world. And the truth is about this is it's not just irresponsible. It's not just crass opportunism. It's also actually what helped take the Conservative Party down to their worst election defeat in 200 years. So it's not going to work for her. Now, let me tell her what the Clean Energy Superpower Mission means for Britain. It means cleaning up our power system so we don't leave the country exposed, as they did, to fossil fuels. It means new jobs in carbon capture and storage as we decarbonise industry and reindustrialise. It means energy efficiency in homes, meaning lower bills, warmer homes and lower emissions. And as for the NESO report that she talks about, I know it's deeply disappointing to her, but we've got an independent report that says the following. First of all, 2030 is achievable. She said it wasn't. It also says it will give us energy security, which she says it wouldn't give us. And it says that it can lead to lower electricity, something she constantly denied. The truth about the Right Honourable Lady is that she's got nothing to say about the. It's basically the Conservative Party is stop the world, I want to get off. Well, stop the world, I want to get off is going to do nothing for the British people. The truth is she's got a lot to learn, and I'm afraid she needs to start reflecting. She needs to start reflecting on where her government went wrong. And it went wrong in many different ways, and she seems to be learning no lessons.
The lesson, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can I just very gently say to the Shadow Secretary of State, she really shouldn't believe dodgy headlines in the Daily Telegraph. In fact, I don't know if there are headlines in the Daily Telegraph that are ever not dodgy based on what she was quoting there. But more importantly, can I congratulate the Prime Minister on his leadership at COP? And can I congratulate the Secretary of State on leading the negotiations, not least in delivering the £300 billion of climate finance for developing countries. Can I ask him, though, he set out this country's achievements since the general election. Can I ask him then, to what extent does he think that the combination of what this country showed at COP and what we've delivered at home since the 4th of July will encourage countries around the world to play their part in addressing the climate crisis?
My honourable friend asks a really important question. I think there are two truths that you take out of COP, which is one, that the transition is unstoppable, and secondly, that it is not going fast enough. But it is such a difference than it was a decade ago. And my honourable friend who was there with me, I think, is nodding in agreement, because every country knows that the climate crisis is happening and affecting them. And the testimony you hear, it's like the testimony we could provide about what people are seeing. So they know that they have to act. Every country faces constraints in acting, but they also know, and this is the big change from a decade ago, that it is massively in their economic interest, that there is a race on for the good jobs of the future, and the clean energy transition can provide them.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Ross Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. COP29 has concluded with a deal that, while welcome, leaves much to be desired. I must stress that we need bolder, more decisive action if we're to face the greatest challenge of our time, the climate crisis. I know that the Right Honourable Gentleman's heart is in the right place and has been for many years. We first met in the run-up to the COP15 in 2009. And I would like to express my thanks to him for his staunch leadership in the intervening years. I would also like to express Lib Dem support for a brave programme of action going forward and our willingness to work with his department to help the UK step up and seize this opportunity for climate leadership. While we welcome the Prime Minister's commitment to ambitious emissions targets for 2035, commitments alone are not enough. Immediate action is needed to insulate homes, reduce energy costs, and ensure that no one has to choose between heating and eating. The delay to Labour's Warmer Homes Plan until spring 2025 is unacceptable when millions, including 1.2 million pensioners, face a cold and unaffordable winter due to the cut in the winter fuel allowance. In my constituency of the South Cotswolds and all across the UK, we've seen firsthand the devastating effects of climate change, and never more so than over the last few days, with floods and storms becoming more frequent and more severe. Towns and villages in my constituency, such as Purton, Great Somerford and Cirencester, have been severely affected by flooding, and we need urgent action now to both mitigate climate change and help our communities adapt to the likely impacts now and in the future. I would also like to take this opportunity to associate myself with the thanks already expressed to the brave men and women of our emergency services in the aftermath of Storm Bert. Climate leadership must prioritise solutions that protect communities and restore nature. Natural flood defences like wetlands. My apologies, I thought I had 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Better instruction.
May I finish with a question? Will the Secretary of State commit to including natural flood defences as a central part of the £5.2 billion flood defence spending, ensuring that communities like those in the South Cotswolds are better protected from the worsening impacts of climate change, while also addressing biodiversity loss?
Secretary of State.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Lady for her questions and for her support for ambitious action, which is important. I think, let me pick out a couple of points that she made. Look, the first in particular on the way in which the devastating effects of climate are already apparent. It's such an important point. And in a way, I think part of the danger, Mr. Speaker, is that they end up being the new normal, and we just think this is part of life. Now, in some sense, it is part of life, and we need, as she said, the right flood defences in place and so on. But we also need to realise that these effects will get worse, significantly worse, if we do not act, and future generations will, frankly, hold us in infamy if they say, well, you knew about the scale of the devastation, you'd seen a preview of what was to come, and you decided you couldn't act. So I think she's absolutely right about that. Secondly, let me just sort of gently correct her on the Warm Homes Plan. We're getting on with the Warm Homes Plan. Indeed, announcements were made last week about action